Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Abandoned by the galaxy. Until one human changed everything. The Forsaken Engineer. The hissing of the airlock still echoed in Kira Chen's ears as she watched the Vexorai's ship rise into the purple sky of Taxi's Ivy. Blood trickled down her temple, mixing with sweat and tears, as she clutched her fractured ribs. 3 years of faithful service as the only human engineer aboard the Vexorai research vessel Distant Horizon had ended with betrayal when the expedition turned dangerous. So much for interspecies cooperation, Kira muttered through gritted teeth, watching the ship's thrusters flare one last time before disappearing into the clouds. The ground beneath her trembled, another of the increasingly violent seismic events that had spooked the Vexorai crew. Their hasty evacuation had left no room for a fragile human, as Chief Scientist Vex Moore had coldly stated while ordering her removal from the escape shuttle. Too injured to fight back against the much stronger aliens, Kira had been left with nothing but a damaged environment suit, a basic medkit, and her personal toolkit. She checked her wrist display, oxygen recycler at 62% efficiency, water purifier functioning, but power reserves dropping faster than they should. The atmospheric sensors flashed warning after warning about the toxic gases that would soon fill the land once night fell. She had perhaps 4 hours to find shelter before the poison claimed her lungs. No time for self-pity, Kira whispered, forcing herself to stand despite the stabbing pain in her side. Her dark eyes scanned the rugged landscape, focusing on the mountain range they'd been exploring before the ground split open beneath them. The caves there might offer shelter, if she could reach them in time. Each step was agony as she navigated the broken terrain. The Vexorai were known throughout the galaxy as brilliant scientists but notorious cowards when faced with physical danger. What they lacked in courage they made up for in casual cruelty. They hadn't even bothered to give her a distress beacon. 3 hours later, with the massive red sun sinking toward the horizon, Kira reached the cave entrance. The oxygen level in her suit had dropped to emergency levels, forcing her to switch to shorter breaths. Inside the cave, the temperature plummeted, but at least the air was breathable once filtered through her suit's purification system. Her wrist light illuminated walls of strange crystalline formations that seemed to absorb, then softly reflect the light in patterns that danced across the rough stone floor. The expedition had barely begun studying these formations before the earthquake started, she murmured. Looks like I'll be finishing your research myself, Vex Moore. For 3 days, Kira survived on emergency rations and filtered cave water. Her med kit had contained enough pain suppressants and bone stabilizers to make movement possible, but infection was setting in despite the antibiotics. The cave system stretched deep into the mountain, a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers that seemed to follow some pattern she couldn't quite grasp. On the 4th day, delirious with fever and nearly out of supplies, Kira stumbled into a chamber unlike any she had seen before. Her failing wrist light revealed walls too smooth to be natural, and flowing patterns carved into surfaces that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. "What is this place?" she whispered. Her voice echoed strangely, as if in answer. Faint blue light began to emanate from crystalline formations embedded in the walls, growing brighter with each heartbeat. The chamber was vast, its ceiling blossoming above, but the floor was perfectly level, constructed, not formed naturally. In the center stood a structure that could only be described as a machine, though unlike any technology Kira had encountered in her years of engineering. It resembled a tree made of metal and crystal, with branches stretching outward and roots disappearing into the floor. The pain in her side was momentarily forgotten. Kira approached the structure, her engineer's instincts overrode caution. This was technology, and technology was something she understood. As she drew closer, something extraordinary happened. The machine responded to her presence. Sections began to move, rearranging themselves like an intricate puzzle solving itself. "Hello," Kira called out, not expecting an answer. A soft hum filled the air and a panel appeared in the trunk of the metal crystal tree. Curiosity overcame fear as she reached out to touch its surface. The moment her fingers made contact, the blue light pulsed strongly and information flooded her mind. not as words or images but as pure understanding. This was a medical station, one of many facilities left behind by a species that called themselves the ancestors, who had vanished from the galaxy long before any current civilization had achieved spaceflight. Somehow, Kira knew exactly what to do next. She placed her palm flat against the panel, and a section of the machine opened, revealing a chamber just large enough for a human to lie down in. Her rational mind screamed that this was dangerous, that she shouldn't trust alien technology she didn't understand, but her body was failing. Without help, she would die in this cave. Not much of a choice, she whispered, removing her damaged environment suit and climbing into the chamber. As the transparent cover sealed over her, Kira felt a moment of panic before a warm tingling sensation spread through her body. The pain in her ribs subsided and consciousness began to slip away. Her last thought before darkness took her was that this ancient technology had responded to her, when the Vexori had found nothing but pretty crystals in their initial survey. When Kira awoke, she had no idea how much time had passed. The chamber had opened and she sat up, expecting pain that didn't come. Her ribs no longer hurt, the cut on her head had healed to a faint scar. Even old injuries, a burn on her hand from an engineering accident years ago, a knee that had never been quite right after a childhood fall, had vanished. More remarkably, she felt different in ways she couldn't immediately identify. Her thoughts seemed clearer and faster. When she looked at the machine tree again, she understood aspects of its design that should have been incomprehensible. "What did you do to me?" she asked the machine, running her hands over her healed body. The answer came not in words but in understanding. The healing process had created a connection, a neural interface that allowed her to communicate with ancestor technology on a fundamental level. The machine had analyzed her DNA, found compatibility, and enhanced certain aspects of her neurological structure to facilitate communication. In simple terms, Kira could now speak the language of this ancient technology. And there was so much more of it waiting throughout the cave system, the planet, perhaps even the galaxy. Over the next weeks, Kira explored the facility with growing confidence. She discovered systems for water purification, food synthesis, atmospheric control, and energy generation. What the Vexori had dismissed as simple crystal formations were actually part of an integrated power and information network spanning the entire mountain. She learned that the ancestors had established this outpost as part of a vast network of research stations across the galaxy, all connected through quantum communications that operated instantaneously across any distance. The earthquakes that had driven away the Vexori were actually the result of ancient systems reactivating after millennia of dormancy. 2 months after being abandoned, Kira stood in what she now knew was the central control chamber, watching holographic displays that showed the status of systems throughout the facility. She no longer looked like the desperate engineer who had crawled into the caves. Her body was healthy, her mind enhanced by the neural connection to the ancestor technology. She wore clothing synthesized from materials in the facility stores, integrated with microcircuits that connected her more deeply to the systems around her. "Computer," she said, using the name she'd given the facility's integrated intelligence. "Show me the communications network." A holographic map appeared, showing thousands of points of light throughout the galaxy, other ancestor facilities, most dormant and waiting to be awakened. "What percentage of these installations are currently active?" she asked. 3%, replied the computer in a gentle, gender-neutral voice that Kira had configured herself. "Most have been dormant for approximately 113,000 standard years." Kira smiled. "And how many of them are currently accessible to the Vexori Alliance?" "None," the computer answered. Vexori physiology is incompatible with ancestor neural interfaces. Attempted access would result in system lockdown. They are, however, compatible with humans. Humans possess neural structures and genetic markers that allow for interface with ancestor technology. The compatibility is imperfect but functional. Kira walked around the holographic display, her mind racing with possibilities. The Vexori Alliance had abandoned her because they considered humans weak and expendable. They controlled vast territories through technological advantage, but they couldn't access this technology, technology that responded to her touch. Computer, what is the status of the communication array? Currently inoperative. Power systems are at 24% capacity. Full restoration would require manual repair of quantum relay nodes throughout the facility. Kira nodded. Decision made. Then that's where we'll start. We have a lot of work to do. 6 months after being abandoned on Traxxas 4, Kira Chen stood before a wall of holographic displays in the central control chamber, watching as another section of the Ancestor facility came online. Her fingers danced through the air, manipulating virtual controls with practiced ease as power flowed through systems dormant for over 113,000 years. She no longer resembled the desperate human engineer who had crawled into these caves half-dead. Her black hair, now grown past her shoulders, was woven with thin filaments of Ancestor tech that enhanced her neural connection to the facility. The clothes she wore, a sleek bodysuit of charcoal gray material interwoven with circuitry, had been synthesized by the facility's fabrication systems. A small drone hovered near her shoulder, one of dozens she had constructed to extend her reach throughout the underground complex. Computer, Kira said, her voice echoing slightly in the cavernous space, status report on the quantum communication array. Final calibration complete, responded the gentle voice she had designed. Quantum entanglement established with 17 nearby Ancestor facilities. Communication network ready for full activation. Kira smiled. 6 months of work had transformed not only the facility but herself. The neural interface implanted during her healing had grown more sophisticated as she learned to use it properly. She could now access the Ancestor database directly with her thoughts, process information faster than any normal human, and control facility systems with mere gestures. "Let's wake them up," she said, raising her hand toward the central pillar of light that represented the quantum communication array. With a simple closing of her fist, Kira sent the activation signal racing along quantum pathways that spanned the galaxy, instantly connecting with other Ancestor installations one by one. Points of light on the galactic map blazed from dormant blue to active gold. Alert notifications suddenly flashed across her displays. "Computer, what's happening?" she asked. "Spacecraft detected in orbit. Configuration matches Meridian Registry Vessel Stellar Seeker, research classification." The Meridians, a species known for their scientific curiosity and meticulous research methods, had no imperial ambitions. They focused instead on expanding knowledge for its own sake. "They're probably investigating the energy signatures from our power-up sequence," Kira mused. "Computer, open a communication channel to the Meridian vessel." For several minutes there was no response. Then a voice came through, speaking the standard galactic language with the distinctive melodic accent of the Meridians. "Unknown transmitter, this is Research Captain Lith Iran of the Meridian vessel Stellar Seeker. We are detecting advanced technology signatures from your location. Please identify yourself." Kira took a deep breath. "Captain Lithiran, my name is Kira Chen, human engineer formerly attached to the Vexeri research vessel Distant Horizon. I was abandoned on this planet 6 months ago and have since discovered and activated an Ancestor facility." Silence followed her announcement. The Ancestors were more myth than history to most galactic civilizations, fragmentary records of an advanced species that had seemingly vanished overnight, leaving few traces beyond occasional ruins that defied technological understanding. "Human Chen," the Meridian captain finally responded, their voice carefully controlled, "your claim is significant. The Vexeri reported all personnel lost during the seismic events on Taxis 4. They lied," Kira said flatly. "They left me behind because humans were considered expendable. I survived, and I found something they missed completely." Another pause. "Would you allow a small research team to land and verify your discoveries? This could be of immense scientific importance." Kira smiled. "I'll do better than that, Captain. I'll guide you to a landing zone where your shuttle won't trigger the defensive systems. I look forward to meeting you in person." 3 hours later, Kira stood at the entrance to the Ancestor facility, watching as the Meridian shuttle settled onto the plateau she had designated. The ship was elegant, with the flowing lines and perfect symmetry characteristic of Meridian design philosophy. 5 figures emerged wearing environmental suits designed for their tall, slender bodies. Meridians resembled humanoids stretched tall, with pale blue skin and large multifaceted eyes that caught the light in iridescent patterns. Their movements were deliberate, each step precisely calculated. Kira stepped forward, no longer needing an environmental suit herself. The neural interface had altered her biology enough to filter the toxic elements of Taxi's Ivy's atmosphere. "Welcome to what I've been calling the Nexus," she said, spreading her arms to indicate the mountain behind her. "I'm Kira Chen." The lead Meridian removed their helmet, revealing features that expressed both caution and boundless curiosity. "I am Research Captain Lytherin. These are my senior researchers." They gestured to their companions, who also removed their helmets. "I confess, Human Chen, we approached with skepticism. The ancestors are largely considered mythological by modern science." "Follow me," Kira said with a smile. "I'll show you they were very real." She led them through crystalline corridors. Holographic displays activated at her approach, ancient machinery hummed with power, and automated systems responded to her slightest gesture. "Impossible," whispered one scientist, running a scanning device over a wall of shifting patterns. "These systems are operating at quantum efficiency levels our theories suggest aren't achievable." In the central chamber, Kira revealed the galaxy map showing the network of ancestor facilities now partially awakened thanks to her activation signal. "The ancestors built a civilization that spanned the galaxy," she explained, manipulating the hologram to zoom in on different sectors. "Their technology operates on principles modern science is only beginning to theorize. For reasons I'm still discovering, their systems are compatible with human neurology but not with other species." "The Vexerai certainly couldn't access it," Lytherin responded. "They saw only pretty crystals where you found living technology that responded to your touch." She turned to face them. "The neural interface suggests there might be compatibility with a few other species, Meridians among them, though the connection wouldn't be as complete as mine." The implications hung in the air. The balance of power in the galaxy had long favored the technologically advanced Vexerai alliance, with species like the Meridians maintaining independence through diplomatic skill rather than military strength. Before the conversation could continue, the computer's voice interrupted, "Warning, multiple vessels entering orbit. Configuration matches Vexerai Alliance military escorts. Weapons systems active." Lytherin's multifaceted eyes widened. "We transmitted our initial findings to the Meridian Science Council. Word must have reached the Vexerai somehow." "How quickly can your shuttle return to your ship?" Kira asked, already moving to the central control pillar. "Not quickly enough if they've deployed interceptors," Lytherin replied grimly. Kira nodded, her mind was made up. "Then it's time for a demonstration. Computer, activate defensive grid and open a communication channel to the Vexerai vessels." The holographic display shifted to show a Vexerai face, Chief Scientist Vex Moore, the very same who had ordered Kira removed from the escape shuttle 6 months ago. His scaled features registered shock when he recognized her. "Impossible," he hissed through the communication system. "You should be dead." "Sorry to disappoint you," Kira replied coolly. "I'm very much alive, and I'm now in control of an ancestor facility, one of many I've awakened across the galaxy." Vex Moore's vertical pupils narrowed. "Whatever primitive technology you've stumbled upon, it now belongs to the Vexerai Alliance. Our ships have the Meridian vessels surrounded, and ground forces will secure your location within the hour. Surrender now, and we may allow you to live as a research subject." Kira's laugh echoed through the chamber. "I don't think you understand the situation, Vex Moore. Let me clarify it for you." She closed her fist, and throughout the Vexerai fleet, systems suddenly failed. Weapons went offline, engines powered down, communication arrays fell silent, every ship hung in space powerless except for basic life support. "What have you done?" Vex Moore demanded, his voice now tinged with fear. The ancestors built their technology to be fundamentally compatible with quantum systems, Kira explained, as if lecturing a particularly slow student. Every advanced ship in the galaxy uses quantum principles for certain critical systems. I've simply accessed them. Your ships are now under my control. She turned to Lithuan. Your ship remains unaffected, you're free to depart whenever you wish. The Meridian captain studied her carefully. And what will you do with the Vexori? Kira faced the holographic display again. Listen carefully, Vexmore. I'm releasing your ships, but with a message for the Vexori Alliance. The balance of power has changed. The ancestors chose humanity as their inheritors, not the Vexori. Your empire expanded through technological dominance, but that advantage is gone. She opened her hand, and the Vexori ships regained power. Returned to your territory, she continued. In one standard month, representatives from all galactic civilizations will be invited to this location to discuss a new era of cooperation. The ancestor network will be shared with conditions. Aggressive expansion ends now. Vexor's expression twisted with rage and fear. The Alliance will not bow to a single human with stolen technology. Then the Alliance will find itself unable to use any quantum technology whatsoever, Kira replied evenly. I control the network now. I can shut down every quantum system in Vexori space with a thought. Test me if you wish. After the Vexori retreated and the Meridians departed with promises to return for the summit, Kira stood alone on the plateau outside the facility, watching the purple sky of Taxi's ivy fade into night. She had set events in motion that would reshape galactic civilization, all because the Vexori had considered her too weak, too fragile to save. Computer, she said softly, send the invitation across the network to all spacefaring civilizations 1 month from today. Message prepared, the computer responded, including the human colonies. Kira smiled. Humanity had spread to dozens of worlds but remained a minor power, respected for adaptability but never considered a serious force in galactic politics. It's time for everyone to understand what humanity is truly capable of, she whispered to the night sky. 1 month later, ships from every corner of the galaxy orbited Turais 4. The planetary defense grid, now fully operational, ensured peace among ancient enemies as they shuttled representatives to the surface. The summit took place in a vast chamber Kira had discovered and restored deep within the mountain, where holographic displays showed the full extent of the ancestor network spanning the galaxy. Kira stood on a platform at the center, the filaments in her hair glowing softly with power. Representatives from over 50 civilizations watched in awe as she demonstrated control over systems their best scientists could barely comprehend. The ancestors left this technology dormant, waiting for compatible minds to awaken it, she explained, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. They built their network not for domination but for connection, instant communication, efficient energy distribution, and technological cooperation across vast distances. She looked directly at the Vexori delegation, including a subdued Vexmore. Some would use this power to conquer. I choose to use it to unite. With a gesture, she activated the final display, blueprints for technology that would allow limited neural interfaces for compatible species, sharing access to the ancestor network while preventing its weaponization. This is the beginning of a new era, Kira declared. One where advancement comes through cooperation, not conquest. The ancestors chose humanity not because we are physically strongest or technologically superior, but because our minds are adaptive and our spirits resilient. When abandoned and left for dead, we don't simply survive, we transform our circumstances. As the summit proceeded into detailed negotiations, Earth's ambassador approached Kira privately. You've changed everything, she said, her eyes shining with pride and wonder. In a single act, you've elevated humanity from a minor power to the center of galactic civilization. Kira shook her head. I didn't do it for power. I did it because I saw what happens when one civilization dominates through technological advantage. The Vexori left me to die because they could, because they thought nothing could challenge them. She looked out over the gathering of species that had been enemies or strangers just weeks before, now cautiously exploring the possibilities of true cooperation. "The human who was abandoned has ensured no one will be left behind again," she said softly. "That's a future worth building." From the depths of a cave on a toxic world, one forsaken human had indeed rewritten the future, not through conquest or revenge but through the uniquely human ability to transform pain into possibility, abandonment into opportunity, and solitude into connection that spans the stars. In the weeks that followed the summit, Kira Chen found herself swept into the rhythms of a new galactic era. Delegations remained on Turais 4 to finalize the treaties she had set in motion. Holographic councils met daily in the cavernous chamber, each species advocating projects to harness the ancestor network for peaceful purposes, scientific exchanges, cultural archives, and humanitarian aid across vast distances. Kira moved among them like a conductor guiding a symphony, her every gesture activating protocols that distributed energy, shared medical breakthroughs, or opened secure communication channels to distant colonies. Yet not every voice in the galaxy welcomed this transformation. Pockets of the Vexarai Alliance, now stripped of their technological monopoly, seethed in isolation. Smuggled transmissions spoke of extremist cells plotting to sabotage ancestor outposts that lay along the North Pole relay line on North 3. Kira learned of these threats in the middle of one negotiation with the Hydran Federation. When a low-power alert flickered on the conference display, she excused herself and tapped into the network security nodes. Within seconds, she traced anomalous access attempts to darknet frequencies fueled by Vexarai sympathizers. Without hesitation, Kira dispatched microdrones to North 3, their sensors calibrated to detect covert tunneling beneath the relay station. As she coordinated with local engineering teams, the Hydran delegates watched in awe as she neutralized the intrusion with non-violent countermeasures, immobilizing mining rigs and sealing tunnels, then offering rehabilitation assistance to any captured saboteurs. By sunrise, the station was secure, and the Hydrans applauded her deft blend of technical precision and humanitarian concern. Amid these crises, Kira continued her personal mission, awakening more ancestor facilities. She established the Aurora Initiative, a coalition of human, Meridian, and select Vexarai scientists dedicated to mapping and restoring dormant Covenant nodes. Each newly activated station became a hub of innovation, bioengineered habitats on arid worlds, quantum-encrypted archives that preserved the histories of endangered species, and emergency relay beacons capable of delivering relief supplies to disaster zones light-years away. One crisp morning, standing before the central pillar of light in the Nexus control chamber, Kira reflected on how far she'd come. Once a lone engineer, abandoned and betrayed, she was now the architect of interstellar cooperation. Yet she felt no hubris, only a profound sense of responsibility. As the network hummed around her, she tapped a sequence that opened a secure channel to Earth's united coalition government. The ambassador's face appeared in a window above the holographic map. "Kira," the ambassador said, voice steady but filled with pride, "the colonies request your presence. They wish to incorporate ancestor technologies into their planetary defense grids and civilian infrastructures. They need your guidance." Kira nodded. "I'll send a team to New Moscow immediately. In the meantime, prepare a training program for coalition engineers. We'll teleport the curriculum modules via quantum entanglement." "Understood," the ambassador replied. "And, thank you." As the channel closed, Kira allowed herself a brief smile. Beyond the polished corridors of diplomacy, countless worlds awaited transformation, farms on desert planets, medical stations orbiting gas giants, schools on ocean worlds. The ancestor network, once silent and unseen, would now ring with life. And as long as she drew breath, Kira Chen would be there, the forsaken engineer who had become the galaxy's greatest connector, ensuring that no one would ever be left behind again.